So you're wondering to yourself, what can I do to improve my writing? I've tried every trick in the book. I've tried this, that, and the other. There's nothing I haven't tried, and my writing still isn't very good. And so you're wondering to yourself, how do I become a better writer? Of course, there are a million lists that you can go through. There's a million different tips, tricks, and all that kind of jazz. But the thing is, what a lot of these tricks have in common is that they're short-term fixes, and they don't ultimately get to the underlying cause. Your writing might suck, but it might suck for a very simple reason. When I refer to writing, I don't just mean, writing novels, whether or not you want to get traditionally published or you want to go down the self-publishing route. When I talk about writing, I'm talking about writing in general. And that writing, of course, includes uni work, but also just a work. We all need to write clearly and concisely. And the people who are writing novels and tell themselves they don't need to be clear and concise in their writing because they are writing a novel and they can be flowery with their exposition, or they're using this and that technique for writing to elicit specific emotions or something to that effect, they're the ones who most need to be clear and concise. The best books, the best writers always say precision and clarity is key. And so my topic for today is how to get feedback and become a better writer. And one thing I want to stress is that feedback will set you free. However, you have to allow it to do so. And so I say all of this because I went through the same journey. Because I've been writing a science fiction novel for many years now, and for many years it sucked. And it only glacially improved. And the big thing was, I refused to take feedback. So I got feedback over the course of many years, not just on this piece of writing on my book, but many other pieces of writing I've done. And the vast majority of the time, and you might be in a similar boat, which is why this video piqued your interest, is that my reaction was the same. It was very dismissive. I got some feedback, it was very critical, or it was just a tiny bit critical. Maybe it was just pointing out that a character just didn't work, or maybe a character arc didn't work, or maybe some of the dialogue didn't work. And it was so easy just to dismiss it. Or it was easy to attack the credentials of the person giving feedback. Let's say you're writing a fiction novel and you want feedback. You give it out and someone gives you feedback that's a little bit critical, or you perceive it as being critical. Let's say the person doesn't normally read fiction, or this is the first fiction book they've read. It's very easy to dismiss that person's opinion. And as bad as it sounds, I did this with my classmates as well. None of them were published authors and they were trying to give me feedback. But the thing with your writing, any writing, and when it comes to feedback, the big thing is that you need to cast a really wide net. We've all had this. We've handed in something for someone to give us feedback on. Let's say it's a friend, or could be a family member. And let's say it's an essay, and they come back and say, this is pretty good. Or, they liked it, or something to that effect. It's something where the person feels like they can't hurt your feelings, and so they just give you something fairly generic. Or they'll just point out one piece of your writing that sort of didn't work, whereas it really could be that your writing was of really poor quality, or that you're not arguing your point well, or the sources you're using just aren't good. And this is why it's so important that you get as many people to read your piece of work as possible. Let's say you hand out your piece of work to 5 people. It might turn out that only one person's feedback is valuable, and the other 4 are just average, or they're just saying the same thing, or they're just not helpful. And whilst that means that only one person's feedback was useful to you, you still needed to hand out your piece of work to 5 people. And the thing is, you just don't know where the good feedback will come from, because I went through this. I handed out my chapters to many different people, and I got very similar results. But the few times that I didn't, and the few times that people were quite critical, and rightly so at the time, I dismissed them. But it took many, many years, and as I was saying, my writing only glacially improved. I don't want that to happen to you. You don't want to follow my footsteps. You want to be much faster. And now, this is not a pill that you can take and your writing improves overnight. You won't wake up tomorrow and your writing will improve, but by making a conscious effort to seek out people, and it might also be useful to actually put money on the table. And this is ultimately what improved my writing, was that I finally paid editors to look at my book. And I spent many hundreds of dollars and asked these 2 editors to edit many chapters of my book over a few years. And only then did my writing improve, but I had to pay for it. And the reason I had to pay for it was that because I couldn't handle feedback. My ego, my self-worth was attached to my writing. I couldn't handle feedback, and so ultimately the only way to get better was to pay for it. Eventually you might want to pay for feedback, but before that, consciously seek out, and consciously change the way you react to feedback. One thing I noticed was when I got feedback, I had that same gut-clenching feeling whenever I read something. And this is regardless of what the feedback was. The vast majority of the time it was, oh, this is okay, or, there's only a few areas of improvement, whereas the writing was really bad. But every single time before I got the feedback, I always imagined that it would be good. Good in the sense that, oh, your writing is amazing, your writing is wonderful, and things like that. I had that in my head first before reading the feedback, before receiving it. And so anything that didn't conform to that, and it rarely did, I got that feeling in the pit of my stomach. And then as a defensive measure to defend myself as a writer, because that's how I saw myself, as a defensive measure to that, I then dismissed the feedback. And so the feedback fell to the wayside, and I'm sure we've all had this, and then you just continue on the same path, and your writing doesn't improve. And the big thing is to realize that every single person gets feedback. In some cases, you might not get any feedback as a writer. You might put it to market as a book to sell, or you'll hand it in to a teacher to mark. And it could be that you only get feedback when you put your book out to market. Maybe only a few people buy it, or a few hundred people, and then the reviews come in and they're negative. And these, of course, are reviews that you should have got beforehand. Or you hand in your piece of writing to the lecturer, and then you get feedback, and then it's negative, which is the feedback that you should have got before. Of course, letting go of your ego, letting go of your attachment to your writing is a long and slow process. If it was easy, well, you would have already done it, and you wouldn't be watching a video like this. But the big thing is that even though this is not a pill, this is not something that happens overnight, you take that long view and you make it a conscious process that from now on, you are going to consciously change how you react to feedback. And that will set you free. If you decide that in the short run you have to pay to get feedback, then so be it, and you go through that process, but you still make it a conscious effort that you're going to seek out feedback, and your writing will eventually improve. Just the main thing to realize is that you're going to put in effort, you're going to put in time, you're going to do what's required, because if you let go of your attachment to your writing, you know and you understand you're going to get bad feedback. That's just a thing. But you're going to accept and you're going to take the good feedback that arrives. And this is not good as in praising your work, but it's the effective feedback that you require. And that will set you on a path of becoming a better writer. So, hope that's helped. Thank you for watching. Subscribe, rate and share all the good stuff. Definitely helps my channel. And I'll see you guys next time.